mute you, Gloria.
Hi, Gloria and Melody. Thanks for joining. I'm Margot. I'm here in the Chicago suburbs and in my home. I'm a jewelry maker, and I love to make arts and crafts, and I teach usually in-person classes around the city, but lately I've been doing a lot of online classes. So I'm excited to be with you guys this evening and show you how to make these paper earrings. I think this will go pretty quickly. It's a fun project. It's fun because there's all kinds of different varieties of papers out there, so you can make the designs however you want based on your papers. So you guys got your kits. I believe everyone's okay there. So in your kit, I did want to say, if you want to ask a question or something, feel free to unmute yourself at any time, and we'll just go back to muting whenever you're done. So I sent you guys some papers, a variety of different papers. So we'll be making 2 different styles today. We're going to make a fan style and a leaf style earring like that. So you can pick which colors you want to use for which design. You'll have some earring findings, so some hoops and some jump rings that are attached. You should have enough to make 4 pair. I put in an extra set. If something happens with your 4th pair, something goes awry, you have an extra set, and if everything goes smoothly, then you can just make an extra pair of earrings. So you have enough paper for that as well. You'll have a paintbrush, or 2 paintbrushes actually. You can use one for the 2 different sealers that are in there. One is a Mod Podge, which is the thicker white container, and it does not have a green dot. And then you'll have a Poly sealer, which is a thinner, and it looks more kind of like milk consistency, and that has a green dot on it. So each one of those 3 tubs has the same product in it. I just wanted to give you enough. I think 1 tub was probably enough, but just in case you have a lot extra. So what was not in your kit that you'll need is some scissors, a ruler just to help us with the folding. If you have a glue stick, that's great, but you don't necessarily need it. The white glue, the Mod Podge, we can use for that. I did put a paper clip in your kit. This will help. I don't know if you'll need this, but I put it in there just in case. It'll help if we need to hold some pieces together while they're drying. So that's why that's in there. And if you have some pliers, sometimes working with small things like this might be difficult, dexterity wise. So that's why you might need some pliers if you want to open up your jump rings. But these are big enough, I think, that if you don't have any issues with that, you can open them with your hand, and I'll show you how to do that. So I think those are all the materials. So we're gonna start with the fan style first. So grab the paper that you want to use for your fan style earring. Are there any questions before we get started?
Just gonna unmute in case anyone have any questions for now, and then everyone have a chance.
Okay. I don't think so. So I see our 3rd person joined us. Hello. Okay, jump right in. We're just getting started. We're going to start with, I just was reviewing the materials. So we're going to start by making these fan shape. So whichever color you decide, we'll start with. And we're just going to be simply folding these like in a, kind of a fan shape. So to start folding, this is a 3 by 3 square, so it doesn't matter which end you start on. But we want to start by folding, flip it on the white side and start folding the color side onto the white side first. But before you do that, I want to give you some direction on how big to make your folds. So if you take a look at one of the earring hooks that has the jump ring attached to it, this ring, this is going to have to slip through if you can see, these are the folds. So this is the finished product. This ring is going to have to slip through the fold. So each fold is going to need to be, if you have your ruler, about 1/4 of an inch. Could be a little bit larger, but about, if you can aim for about 1/4 of an inch, that'd be great. You just want to be able to slip it in between, thread it in between the jump ring. So the fold can't be much bigger than that, or it's not going to fit in between the jump ring. So if it's helpful, you can use your ruler and make a small mark on the back side to start, to help to guide you on where you should start your fold. You can do that, but you can pretty much eyeball it, but you just want to keep your folds pretty small so that they fit through the jump ring. So we'll start folding. We'll flip it on the back side so that the white is up, and you're going to start by folding the color side back. And as long as you have got these two sides even with each other, you're good to continue to fold. So now you've got your first fold, then you can flip it over onto the pattern side and make your second fold. So just keep flipping back and forth from the white side to the pattern side. And try to keep your folds consistent in size. If they're not exactly the same, that's okay. Try to get it as close as possible. Keep folding until the very end. You might have a little bit of a half fold at the end, and that's okay. So you'll end up with something that looks like that. Little accordion. Okay, so then I'm going to move on to the next step. Just let me know if you need more time. We're going to be folding this in half. And I suggest, if you do have a little half fold like I do at the end, to make this your inside part, if it's possible. If it doesn't really matter, but depending on what pattern paper you use, you might want to fold it the other direction. But you'll decide which way you want to fold it in half. If you use your thumb to press, that'll help you. And just fold it in half like so. So you have something that looks like that. Okay. So now, before we get going on gluing it all together, you might want to just test and make sure that your folds do in fact fit into the jump ring. So you might want to take one of your jump rings and take the end of the paper and just slide it in there and make sure that it actually fits. Mine are a little bit big, but it goes on. So you're all good there. As long as it can slip on there, you're good. You can take that off for now. You don't have to leave it on there. Okay. So now what we're going to do is actually glue this fan together. So we're going to have something that looks like that, right? So we want to glue the inside where these two pieces are going to meet. Now we do want to leave an area here where there is no glue, because the jump ring is going to go in between there once it's dry. So I suggest when you're gluing that you glue about 3/4 of a way up. You don't need to glue all the way up, you know, in this part too. So if you take the containers, the pack of 3, the two sets of containers, the one that does not have a green dot is Mod Podge, and open up one of those pots. It's a thicker consistency. I'm working out of a different container, but it's much thicker than the other. That's how you can double check you have the right one. It's more of a, looks exactly like glue. So open one of those up. If you're working with a glue stick, you can use a glue stick for this as well. I suggested using a glue stick in the materials because glue stick is a little bit more drier and it just dries faster. That's really the only reason. But if you don't have a glue stick, you can use Mod Podge for this. And we're going to put a very thin layer of Mod Podge on these 2 pieces. You can use a paintbrush for this. So just, and you have 2 paintbrushes to keep, one for your Mod Podge, one for your poly sealer. So take your paintbrush and dip in a little bit of Mod Podge. You don't need a whole lot. The more you use, the longer it's going to take to dry. So just keep that in mind. But just thin enough so that it will stick together. So you're just going to paint a little bit on the inside. Nice thin layer. You probably don't even need it on both sides actually, after I just did that, but probably just put it on one side and be okay. And then hold it together for a little while. And it should start to stick together. So mine's already sticking together. But if it's not sticking for you, you can try using the paper clip, but if you're using a thin layer, it should be okay. You can see there's still that little bit of a hole at the very top, which is big enough for us to actually put the earring jump ring through. So we'll set that aside and we'll let that dry before we continue to manipulate that. So set that off to the side and we're going to fold the second sheet. So again, we're going to flip it over on the white side and start folding the pattern side back first. Try to do about 1/4 of an inch, a little bit more. If you can't do it that small, and just flip back and forth. Okay. Got your little accordion again. And once you have that, you're going to fold it in half. Now this, I'll just make a note and just show you that how this fold ended on the white side. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that side in because I don't want that really to be visible on the outside. The pattern side is visible on the outside if I fold it inward. So that's just dictating which way I'm folding it. I'll fold it in half. And then got something that looks like that. And then once you fold it in half, just add a little bit of glue on one side and be sure to leave a little bit of room at the top so that your jump ring can slide on once it is all dry. Stick that together, hold it for a little bit. And if you need to use your paper clip, you can. You can open it up a little bit and put it on there like that. If not, it should be starting to dry already. Okay. So we can set that one off to the side. So we'll let those dry a little bit before we go on. And we'll start on the second style, which is the leaves. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions. Anyone needs more time? Yes?
Are you on mute, Gloria? Somehow unmute audio. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I was just wondering, where do we get these paper?
The what?
The papers? Where do we get, where they're, I especially like them because some of them are like two-tone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's from my collection of scrapbook. It's scrapbook, so it's a mix of scrapbook papers, which you could get at, you know, Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby or anything like that. And then the ones that are kind of marbly looking,
Yes.
those I ordered on Amazon, and they are actually they're called origami papers. You may notice they're slightly thinner than scrapbook paper. So yeah, it's kind of a random collection of papers that that I have in my stash. So yeah, I really like the marbly ones as well. They're really cool, and the scrapbook ones are, the floral one I really like a lot. So any other questions for everyone? Yeah. All right. So for the leaves, grab the papers that you want to use for that. Okay. You'll need your ruler for this. And I don't know if I told you you would need one, but if you have a pen handy, that would be great. Just any kind of marking device, pen or pencil. And on the back side of whatever pattern paper you choose, you're going to want to mark at the, take one edge and mark at the 1.5 mark. Make a mark where it's 1.5 inches, which is half of the sheet of paper. So just make a small mark there. And what we're going to be doing is cutting from that mark to this corner and cutting again from that mark to this corner. So we're making a triangle. We're just trimming off part of the square. So from the 1.5 mark point, just start cutting up until you get to the opposite corner. So you'll have a triangle shape. So I'll mark 1.5 inches. That's actually very high up on the paper. A little bit lower to the edge, so I can cut from there. Okay. And then we're going to cut from that mark all the way up to the corner. Same on the other side. All right. You have two triangle looking pieces now. And we're going to do the same thing where we're folding the same size folds. And we're going to be starting folding from the wide end first. So you'll again flip it over on the white side or the opposite side, whichever papers you're using. And we're going to start folding from the wide end of the triangle up. about a 1/4 inch folds. Okay, fold until you get to where you have something that looks like a little baby triangle at the very top, so you can't fold it anymore. And there's a very tiny little triangle, and you're gonna actually trim that off. So that it's just flat. So you're trimming off the very top of the triangle. So you have something that looks like that. You're all done. So again, I'm gonna take my second triangle and start folding from the bottom up, the wide bottom, on the fold onto the white side first, about 1/4 inch folds. Do smaller, great. Okay, you'll have a little baby triangle at the very top. You can trim that off. So you'll have 2 pieces that look like that. So with these, we're going to do the same thing that we did with the fans, where we're going to fold it in half. So you'll have your piece that looks like this. You're going to have the shorter end is what's going to be the top of the earring. Okay, and the wide part, the long part, is what we're going to be folding in half. So you can use your thumb to press in and just fold it in half like that. You have something that looks like that. And that gives you the pretty leaf shape. So you can do that for both of these shapes. Let's fold in half. And I'm going to trim a little bit more of my little baby triangle off. It's a little bit wider than the rest of my folds, so I'm going to trim that. That's on both of them, actually. You want them to be, you don't want anything hanging off wider than your folds that you made. So just trim those pieces off. So you've got 2 pieces that you're folding in half. And what you're going to do now is just what we did with the fans, and we're going to take a little bit of glue stick or Mod Podge, whichever you're using, and paint one side of the inside of the leaf, remembering to leave room at the very top so that we can put the jump ring in there. If you want to double check before you put your jump ring, or before you glue it, to make sure that your jump ring goes on, it fits. That's plenty of space there. Just test it out before you glue everything and go through all the trouble if it doesn't fit. So add a little bit of glue. If you're having trouble getting it to stick together right away, you can use the paper clip. Mine's sticking okay, I think. The trick to this is to use very thin layers. Okay, so you should have 2 things that look like earrings now. Okay, now we can do a little bit of trimming if need be. You don't necessarily have to do this step, but for the fans, if you fold it in half and if you hold it up to your ear and you decide, it's a little bit longer than I like, you can trim it at this point. This is about, let's see, what is it? It should be about, 1.5 inches long. So just depending on if you wanted it to be a little bit shorter, you can. The easiest way to do it is to fold it in half like this. So I've got it bunched in my fingers like that, and I'm just going to trim the very bottom like that. And even if you've noticed maybe when you folded it, it was a little bit uneven, this is a good time to trim it as well. You won't really notice it as much with the fans because it is a pretty round shape, but if it's noticeable, you can just trim it off. So you've got perfect little shape there. So that's one place where you can trim the fans. One place I do suggest trimming the little leaves is at the very bottom. There's kind of a little bit of a point. If you flip it on its side and squeeze it together again, I think it looks really pretty when you actually trim this piece off. So you can see it's a little bit pointy, and I'm just going to trim it flat like that. So I'll show you that again. You can see, well, I'll actually show you the difference. You can see how the one in my right hand is a little bit pointy, and the one in my left hand is a little bit pointy, and the one in my right hand, I just trimmed it. So I'm just going to trim it. I just think it looks nicer, that pointy end on it. Okay. So once you got your trimming, now is the time that we want to seal it, and this will help protect it, from the elements, and just overall it is paper. So we're going to do 2 layers of sealant. First is the Mod Podge, which you've already been using, perhaps, to glue the 2 pieces together. So we're going to do a thin layer of Mod Podge on the front and on the back. I would recommend doing, we'll start on the front of the fans, and then we'll move to the front of the leaves, and then we'll come back to the fans again. And like I mentioned earlier, the trick for this is to do pretty thin layers so that it dries faster. And the reason that we're doing 2 different kinds of sealer is the Mod Podge will kind of help the second sealer, which is a poly sealer. It'll help it sit up and not soak into the paper, because if we just went straight into putting the poly on the paper, it's going to soak in, and it's going to take a lot longer to dry. So just adding a layer of Mod Podge and letting it dry will keep the poly from soaking into the paper. So that's why we're doing 2 different kinds of sealants. So we'll start with Mod Podge, and you're just brushing it. You still want to avoid this very top area where the jump ring is going to go. You don't want to paint over that too much because you're going to need to thread the jump ring through there. But I like to just kind of start in the middle and work my way out left to right, and just put a very thin layer. And the nice thing about Mod Podge too is that the Mod Podge kind of opens up the fan for you. You don't have to do anything. I think it's the maybe the moisture in the Mod Podge. It just kind of naturally opens up the fan for you. So you may notice that it's kind of moving as you're painting it on. So you just want to paint the front for now. We're going to come back to the back. So just paint the front. Just make sure you get the sides and the top. And again, like I said, just do a very thin layer because we want this to dry pretty quickly. But just make sure if you've got a lamp or a light nearby, you can see where the light's catching it to see if there's any spots where you missed. So do that. You can see how my fan is on the left is already kind of starting to open up a little bit. So we're going to do that for both of your fans. Okay. All right, and set those off to dry. And about 10 minutes is how much time you want to give it to dry, depending on how thick you made your layer or your coat. It may be drier faster than that, but you want it to be definitely dry to the touch before we start to put the poly sealer on. So I know that's probably going to get us pretty close to 7:30, but I'll still be able to show you how to finish everything. So, okay, so you've got your fans done. Move on to the leaves and put a thin layer of Mod Podge on those leaves. And I am turning it to the side and kind of getting that whole side too, just brushing down. Okay. So the leaves will start to open up too by themselves. Okay, so once you've got your front side done, you can go back to your fans and do the back side with Mod Podge. Should already be kind of starting to dry pretty well on the front. And just do the same thing, just put a thin layer on the back. And once you finish the back of the fans, you can move on to the back of the leaves. So once you've got both sides done, go ahead and get out your other paintbrush. We're going to get out the other tub that has the green dot on it. That is the poly sealer. And if you want to use these paintbrushes again, you can this just rinses off with water. The Mod Podge comes off with water. The sealer will rinse with water too. It's water based, so you can use these again for other projects if you want to make more too. So we're going to just do the same thing with the poly sealer on the front side. Mine are still a little bit damp on the front, so I'm just going to give it a few more minutes. But while I'm doing that, I'm just going to show you how to actually put your jump rings on, because you won't want to do that until the earrings are totally dry. So that might be later tonight, or if you want to leave it sit overnight, so that the sealer gets pretty firm. You may even want, I usually put 1 or 2 coats of the poly sealer on. It's totally up to you. The more you put on, obviously, the more firm it will be. So if you do the poly, you know, you want to just make sure it's dry to the touch. It dries pretty quickly as long as you're doing thin coats. And but you know, you might want to just do more coats is all I'm saying. So you won't put your jump rings on right away. But I'm going to show you how to do that so that when you are ready to do that, you're good to go. So I have a leaf here that I made. So the jump rings are already attached to the earring hooks. So what you'll want to do is just open up the big jump ring, and you'll notice there's a split where the jump ring, where the 2 ends meet. So what you will want to do is push one end away from you and pull one end towards you to open it. So you don't want to open it like that, because that will kind of distort the shape, the circle shape. You want to open it like this so that you can push it back together and it's still a circle. So once you open the jump ring, you'll have that hole that you left when you were doing your gluing, and you will just thread that jump ring right through there. When you're doing that, before you do that, make sure that your earring hook is facing the right way. So you know, make sure that the earring is facing how it will hang in your ear before you thread the jump ring through. So thread it through, and then you're just gonna close it back. You'll push it back together so the 2 ends are meeting again, and that's it. And then that's your earring. So that's how it hangs in your ear. So that will be the very final step after everything's totally dry that you'll want to do. So any questions on how to finish the earring? It's really just a waiting game once you get everything painted on till it's all dry, and then you can wear them. So mine feels pretty good, dry enough to paint. So I'm going to use, I'm working out of the actual jar, some poly sealer. And again, we're just doing very thin layers. Same thing we did for the Mod Podge. We'll start on the front of the fans, then we'll move to the front of the leaves, and then go to the back. I see this little piece I need to trim off of mine. Okay. So the poly sealer is that milk. It looks kind of like milk. It's a lot thinner, a little bit easier to get on than the Mod Podge actually. And this is what makes it more firm. It kind of dries a little bit more hard, and it is water repellent. So this is, and it makes it very shiny. So the more you put on, the shinier it's going to be. So if you like that look, then You definitely should have enough sealer to add multiple coats. And I went straight to the back. I don't know why I did that, but I accidentally did my front and my back. That's okay. Don't do that. Just try to do one side at a time so you can just set it down and dry easily. This dries pretty fast if you're doing thin coats, which is nice. You really want to, if you're going to do more layers of the poly, let it dry, totally dry, because you don't want to add so much moisture to the paper that it starts to kind of wilt. So when it's totally dry, it won't do that because it's got it like a, you know, the sealant is working, so you shouldn't have that issue. Okay. So I've added 1 coat of Mod Podge and 1 coat of sealant to both my styles. So now all there is to let it dry. Like I said, let it dry until at least, maybe about at least 30 minutes, I think, before you try to put the earring hooks on, because you don't want it to get bendy. And it'll be pretty crunchy, like if you want to know when it's dried. The paper will be, I don't know if you can hear that, but it'll be pretty crunchy. So that's how you know that it's totally dry. You don't, it'll have a little bit of a give to it, but it'll be pretty, it'll have a sound. So you know it's totally dry. Any questions?
Feel free to go on mute if you have any questions. Just making sure that you know that.
Yeah. Yeah, we got done before 7:30, but you do have at least 1 more set of papers in there and 1 more set of earring hardware if you want to make another pair. If you come up with any fun new designs or cuts or ways that you fold it, I'd love to see that. So yeah, that's all I had, unless there's any questions from anybody. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming on. I hope you all enjoyed it, and that I can't wait to see how your earrings turn out. Hopefully, you'll share them on social media or something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I hope that everything turned out all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
I think Melody, Gloria, you're on.
Yeah.
I need to unmute you. Is it working? How come Zoom is Zoom playing with me.
So
Okay.
I used 2 different folds. Like
Okay.
this one, I did a really tiny fold,
Yeah.
and then this one I did wide.
Okay.
So in order to get the jump, I think you called it,
Jumpering.
I had to put you see that I had to put cuts in.
Oh,
wide
okay.
one.
Yeah.
I'm also ruining it by keep closing and opening it, but I guess I'm gonna look a little wacky with 2 different.
That's okay.
Two
There are
different
2 different sides of your ear.
And
Yeah.
I really love this paper. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem.
And,
Yeah, I got the thicker ones from Michael's just in the scrapbook aisle, and then the thinner ones I got on Amazon. They're origami paper. So if you want to
origami.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like the thinner fold. And what I did was I folded the paper in half,
Yes.
and then I folded that, and then I folded this half in 3, and then I got
Okay.
really narrow little folds in there, and that helped me to get this really fine fold.
Okay.
I did the same thing with the fan. Ooh, there's too much glue on this. I did the same thing with the fan, and so there's a lot more.
Can you hold it up a little bit? I can't really see. Oh yeah, I
Oh,
see.
sorry.
Mhm.
So it's a little tinier.
Cool.
I think this might be a little bit big for my ear, but and I only had time for the Mod Podge. I didn't on both sides of both earrings. I didn't start the sealer at all. So that's what I'm gonna do once class ends. I'm gonna.
Yeah. The longer you wait in between for it to dry, the better. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.